In today's video, I want to talk about servitude. And no, I'm not talking about the kind that some white folks use to justify why black people should stay enslaved. No, we're not talking about that because that's terrible, okay? Hi there, my name is Shana Marie and welcome to Storehouse Productions. In today's video, I want to talk about servitude. A first disclaimer, in this video, you might find that I'm a little nervous, but I am going to chalk it up to my ability and my speech isn't as poppin' as I wish it could be. I get kind of tongue tied, as you can see, and as you will see. But I won't let that deter me and stop me from doing the will of God that's been called in my life. I have let that lead me into disobedience for so long. If God can use Moses, he can use me. Okay. So I just want to give you that disclaimer that I understand that it might seem a little choppy or whatever, but I'm not going to let that deter me. And I hope that doesn't deter you from listening to this message. So back to the topic at hand, which is servitude. As I said in my little disclaimer, I was being led into a little bit of disobedience. And so I realized that my disobedience not only had a major effect in my life, but it also was affecting the purpose of God on a larger scale. And that's something that your girl she couldn't really live with herself with. And so that led me to really try to discover like the power of servitude and the very importance of servitude. And that journey really led me into John chapter 2, verses 1 through 10, which a lot of people, of course, describe as Jesus's first recorded miracle in the Bible. And a lot of people, it's when he turned the water into wine, and people's like, yes, that's amazing. I've used this Bible verse to justify why me as a Christian will be drinking. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, if Jesus turned water into wine, this is fine for me to drink. Okay. But of course that doesn't like really get to the point of the story. And there were things in that Bible verse this cluster of Bible verses that I realized I missed such a huge picture of it. Like I just missed it. And so without further ado, I'm not going to read all of it. I'm not going to read 1 through 10. I'm actually going to read 5 through 10. And I'm going to paraphrase 1 through 5 for you. So in my paraphrasing, the first thing to point out is that Jesus is at a wedding in Galilee. And it stuck out to me that Jesus is in a wedding because weddings, as I've been reading my Bible, I've been really understanding just the importance of like weddings. And I'm not just talking about a wedding as a man and a wife, which of course is very important, but the symbolic measures of which God uses the word wedding and bride and bridegroom when he talks about his religion or his relationship with his people. And at the time, and of course in the Old Testament, it was with Israel and Judah, and how God was saying that as like a man loved his wife, like I will be committed to you guys, like you will be my people, I will take care of you, I will love you, I will cherish you. Even when you become low down, stinking, dirty, you know what I mean? Even if when you become unfaithful, like we will get into our quarrels, but I will still love you and I will still bring you back, like because that is the commitment I have to you. And so, of course, as a Christian, we know that through Jesus Christ, we are able to have that relationship with God, even though I wasn't born Jewish. I can still have that same loving relationship where God can have that great commitment in my life because of what Jesus Christ has done. And so back to this story of when God or Jesus turned water into wine, and his popping amazingness. It is, I just thought it's important just to see that this is under a cover of commitment, God's commitment to us, that Jesus has started and did his first miracle. Um, so Jesus is at this wedding and his mother is there. And it said that the disciples were also invited with Jesus. So I'm just assuming that Jesus came with his mans and them to this wedding. You know, they dressed to the nines. They looking good. They about to do the Cupid shuffle on the thing. You know, they just having a good time at this wedding. And the wine runs out. Now, we know that that is a very big party stopper. People want to have a really great time. And so the wine has run out. And Jesus's mother comments that the wine has ran out to Jesus. And Jesus is like, you know, why are you telling me? I'm out here, you know, we doing an electric slide on the dance floor. Like, my time is not, like, this is not what I'm here to do. Why are you telling me this? And so that is just a really great background story to Shana's summary of verses 1-5. And I am going to read you guys verses 5-10, which Jesus' mother, his mother said unto the servants, do whatever he tells you. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled it to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize it had come where it had came from, though the servants who drew the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now. And I just thought, when I read that verse and when I looked at my life and I realized all the things that I was running from, I realized how not only important servitude is in terms of the Lord. I didn't realize that this story was such a great example of how I should be leading my life. Okay. Now, one of the major things that I realized when I read this story is that Jesus said to his servants or to the servants to do something, and the servants did it. Okay. And he did it twice. And the first time he's telling them to fill the water to the brim. And the second time, or fill the jars of water, and they filled it to the brim. That stuck out to me because a lot of times when I hear God telling me things to do in my life, and especially things where I'm kind of like, I don't really want to do it. Like, I think if I was like a servant at that wedding, I'd be like, what is this man talking about? Like, he wants us to, like, the wine ran out and he's telling us to get water. Like, either this about to be some real funky wine or he's about to have like 1,000,000 grapes in the bag or something. Like, when someone tells me that they're going to make wine, if their first ingredient isn't grapes, I have a tough time believing that we're making wine. And so here they are listening, and Jesus is giving them the first order of business, and it doesn't seem on task. But these servants, they do it. And not only do they do it, but they do it to the brim. again, if someone tells me to do something, I don't know if I'm doing it to the very tip top because I'm skeptical. I don't really know. And it really, really brought it back to what the Lord was telling me in my own life. And he was telling me, I remember I was watching this documentary about the HIV pandemic and how the COVID pandemic really was detrimental to the advancements that the HIV treatment community was getting. It was stopping the HIV treatments that needed treatments and needed research to do for this community or our brothers and sisters that were affected by it. And so as I'm watching this documentary, I was really touched by all the stories, but especially to the one, heartbroken really, about the one story where the guy had contracted HIV and he, in turn, it must have got out and it led to this church and he felt really shunned by his church. And that broke my heart in a way because I feel like as Christians, I don't like, it's like, honestly, if we could do Yelp reviews for Christian or for God and Jesus, and if there was Yelp reviews, there might be some terrible Yelp reviews under there, not because God and Jesus aren't popping and amazing, but it's because of like the service, us as servants, how we treat one another. And it's important, I think, for us to check ourselves at the door, especially if I'm a person who the Lord is telling me to lead with love and to love God first, and then love thy neighbors. If I'm not leading in love, um, I'm doing a disservice to God, and I'm really messing up people that might be interested or wondering, man, like I've heard about God, I want to get to know God, but I feel like I'm not going to be loved or included because I live a certain way. And so that really kind of bothered me, and it kind of just related to my own experiences with religious people and how I just didn't agree with the things that they were saying because it just felt so harsh or it felt really self-centered instead of selfless. And so the Lord had put on my heart, I heard it clear as day. He said, Shana, after watching this, I'm watching this documentary, and he's like, Shana, I need you to tell my people, the ones that don't think I love them, the ones that think that I'm shunning them because of anything, that I love you. You know my voice. You hear my voice. Don't be led astray because I love you. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, okay. How do I do that? Like, I mean, what do I say? Like, where do I go? And so I was like, oh, well, maybe if I'll do like this and I'll do that. And I'm like, Lord, I'm not really ready. But if you give me some time, I'll do it. And I realized that that time that I needed, it really was me running in my own insecurities because like Moses, one of my favorite things of like Moses is like when he's at the burning bush and he's telling the Lord all this stuff like, Lord, like you really don't want to use me because what if this and what if they don't listen and what if blah blah blah, what if blah blah blah. And the Lord gets fed up with all of Moses' excuses. He's like, bro, I'm talking to you, okay? I know exactly who you are. I know exactly how I made you. I know exactly how you're turning out, and I'm using you. So let's stop all those excuses, okay? And reading that verse in Exodus really helped me to realize that I make the same excuses as your boy Moses. But God is like, girl, I can still use you. And so I really felt like in my own personal assignment which was to talk about, and when I say in the community, the ones who God is like talking to, I'm not talking about like the quote unquote traditional communities. I'm talking about the communities of our brothers and sisters who identify themselves as LGBTQ, who are believers in Christ, who can quote the scriptures better than I can, who have relationships probably stronger and deeper than I have, or even with many other people in the Bible, or not in the Bible, but in the churches. God talked to y'all probably more than they talked to the people that told you you weren't welcomed or loved. And so that's where I'm really at right now. I really want to talk to my brothers and sisters, especially in the LGBTQ community, but any community really, who have felt really shunned or pushed away, not because of what the Lord has said, because you know what God is telling you in your heart. Like, you know, God is like, but I love you and I made you and I know you because I knew you even in the womb. You know what I mean? Like, that's powerful. God knew you in the womb and even before in the womb, okay? But I'm talking about those brothers and sisters who have relationships with God, but because of whatever reason, someone has told you because of your lifestyle or because of how you identify or what you see or whatever, that God doesn't love you anymore, and you know in your heart that that's not true. I'm talking about those brothers and sisters that I, as a heterosexual female, okay, a Christian woman, I love you, and I'm riding with you as ride or die people for Christ, okay? So that was my individual journey, but it also led me to see that my disobedience of not saying this sooner was leading me into, like I said, disobedience, but also as a bad servant. And of course, if you are being a bad servant, that is a reflection to God. I imagine myself at this wedding being one of the servants, and if Jesus is telling me to go get this water, I'm about to, like, he doesn't even tell them I'm about to turn it into wine. He just tells them what to do. That's important also to note too. God, a lot of times when the Lord has been speaking to me, he doesn't tell me the plan. I find it out after the fact, or sometimes I discover it while I'm going through it, but a lot of times I'm left in an obscurity. And so in this example of like turning water into wine, I know I would have been, because I have been using this example about me watching the documentary and not saying anything sooner, is I realized that not doing is terrible, especially when you know to do it. I'd like to bring you guys to James chapter 1, verses 22 to 25. Now, the full thing, which is this one, we're going to title as Listening and Doing. I'd encourage you, if you want to read a little bit more, you should read verses 19 to 27. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be reading 22 to 25, which says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, do or not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do." So one of the important things about Jesus turning water into wine is how he did it through the servants. He said to the servants what to do, and then the servants did it. He said it, the servants did it. He said it, the servants did it. That's how we got the water into wine. I
Don't get quiet now.
I can tell you I love my time meditating with the Lord. I listen to his word all the time. He speaks to me and we talk about the things in the areas in my life. It's amazing. But when it's time to do it, your girl be lacking. And so your girl, that's disobedience. Your girl's disobedient. When God is telling me to do something, most, like 9 times out of 10, it's not for me. It's for someone else. It is for the betterment of someone else. It is God going through me to get his will done. And it's not to say that if I don't do what God is telling me to do, that he won't get someone else. Perfect example of that is when Moses passed away and it was Joshua and the Lord was talking with Joshua. The Lord told Joshua, as I was with Moses, so shall I be with you. So it was just like a blip. Like the Lord is like, it's me. Like if you have me, you could do what Moses did because I blessed Moses to do that. And so I never want to get it confused, or even when you hear some people say like, oh, like, if I won't do it, it's going to fall apart. That's never what it is. Like, girl, boy, whoever you are in Christ, you're just a humble, hopefully, you're just a humble servant. But what you won't do, God will find someone else to do, or God will do it himself. God will use whatever, objects, people, non-believers, whatever. So I never want to get into the place, or I never want to come across that what I'm saying is everything will fall on you if you don't do what the word of God is telling you to do. But it's really to show that person who's irresponsible, like, this is how important you are. Like, if you don't do it, I won't bless these people. Why? Because you have to understand your roles and your regulations in the will of Christ. So I think in Ezekiel chapter 3, maybe, where God is talking to him and he's saying, now listen, I'm telling you what you need to be doing. And if you're not doing it, if you're not telling these people, X, Y, and Z, like I'm telling you X, Y, and Z, then they will be punished for what their own individual sins or mishaps or whatever the case may be that the Lord was telling them to do and they weren't doing. But you then will be punished because I told you to do something and you didn't do it. And so I was like, oh my God, Lord, like, how many times you need to tell me I need to do this? Another quick point before I put this Jesus turning water into wine story to rest is that the bridegroom at the end of verse 10, the bridegroom receives the kudos, the blessings, the glory for Jesus turning water into the wine. And I think that's extremely important, especially as a follower, as someone. I know I keep saying that, but it's just I just can't stop saying it. As a follower of Christ, you come to understand that God gets all the glory. If I am doing something and I'm like, yes, I'm getting praise and honor, I'm doing it wrong. I don't want any of the praise. I don't want any of the glory, because it all should come to the bridegroom. And at this case, we understand that the bridegroom is God. It's like a full circle experience, really, because we can see ourselves not only as the servant, but we are also the bride. And so here we are serving these party goers, in which the bridegroom gets credit for the water, the miracle of the water turning into wine, which Jesus created, or Jesus really set that in motion. But it's for the praise and glory for the bridegroom. And so it's important to understand just the cycles of things. Us as the servant, being obedient to what Jesus is saying and participating in his miracle. And through that, we are serving the rest of the party to enjoy these festivities in which we as servants don't get to partake of it. But as God being the bridegroom, we as the bride, we get the benefit of it, because God is a good bridegroom. God is a loving husband, in that sense. And he takes care of us like a good husband, as we can see through the Old Testament and all of the wonderful and glories. And even for us as Christians, when we understand his big sacrifices of sacrificing his only son so that we could be saved. It's very important just to see that whole cycle of relationships. So while we are serving others, at the sense, God is taking care of us because he loves us and we are his people. But when we do things, we don't do things so we can get things. Okay. As a servant in this story, we are not turning the water or helping Jesus turn the water into wine so that we can partake in the wine. We are actually doing that because we are being obedient. And in turn, the bridegroom gets the glory and the honor, and he is in turn a good husband, and he is loving. So it's this one big continuous circle and cycle of things. And so it is a good thing to be a servant. It is a good thing to be given because God really takes care of us. But of course, in all things, he gets glory and honor through everything. All good things in my life comes from the Lord. All good things in my life comes from the Lord. All good things in your life, I'm praying that you see comes from the Lord. So that's kind of what I really wanted to talk about with this, the story of Jesus turning water into wine in servitude. And so if you're listening to that story and you're saying, well, Shana, like, how do I be a good servant? Like, I want to be able to listen to what God tells me to do so that I can do it, but I'm having a hard time understanding or even listening or even knowing that I'm listening to your voice. I'll leave you with these tips until the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.